It's a tsunami of information. We don't have anything positive.
So terrible. So terrible.
Anyway,
Stop blowing smoke up my ass. Oh, I can't say that.
No. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Make It podcast. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
And I am wearing the opposite color of one Christopher Barkley because we tend to do this. Yeah, this is what we do. Sometimes it's like we do the perfect opposite. Sometimes it's perfectly balanced in the colors. It's just this crazy thing that we do. And it's just because we are just connected like that. And of course, I haven't even said my name, but I'm not going to say it because y'all should know who I am by now. Right? I mean, come on.
This is the Make It podcast. You should know who the other guy is by now. And for those just listening to this, the other guy.
Yeah, you just called me the other guy. I so jacked up. Like,
you're Joe Pesci.
You're right, exactly. We talked about this earlier.
Well, just for the people listening, I'm wearing all black because it's snowing outside. And Nick is wearing all black. And but really,
you're wearing all black. Look at that, because he's looking at me.
Yeah,
right.
Who's wearing black? He's like, I'm wearing all black. Yeah, Chris is
Nick
wearing white. I'm wearing black with a white hat with the black emblem on it. Because of course,
it an emblem?
I had to balance him out. It's
is it an emblem?
I would call it an emblem or an insignia or a logo. I mean, if we're gonna go,
I'd call it a four-leaf clover.
It's nice. It balances out. It balances out your facial hair. It's nice. It works.
It really does. It's perfect.
Thank
you. Actually, all of us are kind of wearing some shade of white or black tonight, so that's pretty cool. And speaking of the others, of course, our esteemed guest with us today is the one and only Adam Schomer, and guiding us on this journey is intern Sam and producer Papa Bear. Guys, say hello.
Hello.
All right.
Howdy.
That was a happy hello.
Should they do it again? Was it happy enough? Should they do it again?
That was perfect.
And in 5, 4.
No, that was perfect.
Can we get you guys? Can we get ramped up? Do we need caffeine in here?
I'm ready.
Oh man,
we're
on something
Let's
already.
Do it.
Let's ready to go.
Yeah.
Well, let's circle back to you, Adam. I know that right now you are. Well, when this just full disclosure, we are recording this on January the 9th. And right now in LA are probably the most apocalyptic fires that I can remember seeing. Adam, you're kind of down the street from this. How are you holding up?
Good. We took off. Thanks for mentioning that. That's why my lights, as a director and producer, my light's not that great, nor is my microphone. But we're just camped. We got out pretty early, camped up in a hotel. The fire, I think the evacuation's about a mile from my house, so we just left early preventatively, and thankful to be safe. And it seems so far a lot of people are safe. Maybe a lot of buildings are going down, but the human toll has been relatively low. So, thank God for that.
And I love your attitude about it. And I know we're going to talk about this later in the conversation, just about your sort of history with spirituality and meditation and your ability to sort of look past the possessions and really see it as you do have your life, though. And your whole personality is like that. I've really caught onto that like immediately, just in this short time that we were talking before we hit the record button. Your whole sort of center is sort of so anti-materialistic, which I don't want to say all producers are the opposite of that, but we've met producers that are the opposite of that for sure. And that producer in you is what allowed you to pack up and leave early. So I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're doing well. And I'm glad you have the right perspective. With that being said, can you tell the audience a little bit more about you and what they might know you for and what's going on in your life now from a film perspective?
Yeah, my name's Adam Schomer. I'm director and producer of documentary films. The films and series, right, tend to focus on empowerment, a lot of the inner journey. There's always got to be something fun to watch. So, be it motorcycling through the Himalayas, high risk gives high reward. Like, we grow when we challenge ourselves. So I love documentaries that do that. Heal is a well-known documentary in the wellness space. And of course, when you're facing life and death, that's a huge challenge. Likewise, like the motorcycle in the Himalayas, Road to Dharma, Highest Pass, facing death. And then Selling Superman, the one we just released, on the surface, comic books, hidden collection, but underneath there's this real family trauma and really what's inner power and how do we, sometimes not value ourselves because our parents gave us whatever conditioning, society gave us certain conditioning. This is all fascinating
Right.
to me, like why we value ourselves the way we do. So that's what like really lights me up and makes me want to tell a story. But of course, there's got to be a fun through line and would you sell this Superman #1 worth $3 million and the buddy journey. But underneath it, I want to know, how people tick and how we can improve ourselves, and not in a self-help way, but improve meaning become more happy and more at peace with ourselves, and hopefully a little more kind to ourselves. I think there's epidemic of self-hate out there, to be honest. So
Self-hate and loneliness, it's a
yeah,
real problem that we
disconnection.
have right now. That
Yeah.
is, and everyone's been mentioning the loneliness, and I feel like that's an echo chamber thing, but very few people mention the self-hate. I think that is a really, really, really big deal. And we like to see people burn because we don't like ourselves the way we should. That is a really important point. And I have to tell you, and I don't know if I can speak for you, Nick, on this, or Papa Bear or Sam, but for me, I had a really fun time on the journey in preparation for this conversation, watching the docu-series Selling Superman. We have a friend who is a comic book dealer, has a business, and getting his feedback on what that collection meant to his business, and some of
Right.
the, it definitely meant something. You were impacting through this film, and Darren, who we'll talk about, who's the, I would say, the protagonist of the documentary,
Yeah. Yeah.
was doing through this collection, and how it was driving prices up and down for people who were thousands of miles away in this comic book industry. But the documentary is beautiful. I think everybody should go
It's,
watch it. Selling Superman is
right.
tremendous. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a 4-part series. Guys, it's $12.
Right.
$12. That's it. That's your commitment. You have it, you own it, you watch it. And I came to realize, because I do know a few people who love comic books and collect them, that these stories always tend to be father and son stories for some reason. Either the reason you're collecting or the reason you love comic books in the first place, or you look to superheroes as heroes instead of real men, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
is a father and son thing. That's been my personal experience. Can you speak to your feelings on that at all? Like, what did you notice coming out of this experience with Darren and the rest of the folks who actually love comics that were in the documentary, including yourself,
Yeah.
if you want to add that in there?
Sure. Sure. I think that's a great observation because I'm not embedded in the comic book world. I came in as an outsider, right? Darren, I knew from high school, so he tipped me off to this story about 3 years ago, and it's not something I knew about. I didn't know is that I have Asperger's. Didn't know they were collecting. Didn't know it was hidden in the house. So it's by fate that I was meant to make this film that his buddy that he could trust, makes documentaries. So I didn't know much about the collectors and comic book people, those that love comic books. I always um, thought it was kind of an escape, the comic book world, from life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, let's go somewhere where it's good and evil. And I never thought so much of maybe father son. But then the more I got to know the comic book world, the less I see it as an escape and more as just community and like just like sports. We all, love talking about
Mm-hmm.
stuff together. And I think, yeah, when you look at it at like community and bonding, then you go, oh, well, if I didn't have the bond with certain people, be it family, be it fathers, you're going to try and make a family somehow. And with Darren, he really had a disjointed, father son relationship. His father couldn't express emotion well, couldn't notice his emotion, just provided well but didn't really give much love, right? So for Darren to try and rewrite that story and make comic books a good thing instead of this hidden thing, he couldn't even read the comic books with his dad. It's kind of really really strange.
Right.
Darren, I
Yeah.
think, is really
It
trying
was
to rewrite
crazy.
a father son relationship. And when you look at Superman, you're like, oh wow, there's so much father son there, right? Like
Yep.
Superman's father on earth really gives some good advice. I mean, I was able to splice that into the for a second episode where he's like, life is much. I think you're here for something more than touchdowns. Like to use your power for something more than just success. And I really, early on in the process of that film, I thought that was important because we do need a father that can guide us in the right way. And if we don't have that, we can be uh, maybe, or if it's not a father, we need some role models that say, like, what's actually important to us? Is it touchdowns? Is it money? Is it happiness? And yeah, it becomes, I think, more and more clear how much we're created in some ways by our parents, until we uncreate that. That's my take on all of humanity, I think, in short.
You're
Yeah,
the
and
you're
I
the you're
yeah,
the
I was gonna say
anti
I see it a
Andrew
little bit
Tate.
less. Yeah, but I see it a little bit less about the father son thing. I think that's definitely a through line, in the series, of course, because this is
That's interesting.
about his father's legacy.
Mm.
But with the
Yes.
comics, I often saw it like, if you think about it like this is a crazy way to think about comics. I'm just gonna throw this out at you because
Yeah, let's
I
hear it.
thought about this at one point in my life. It's kind of like the Bible. It's like, what? Wait,
Hmm.
what? What did I just say?
What?
Where are these kids learning the difference between good
Yeah.
and evil?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's through these heroes, because you can look at pretty much every superhero until you start getting into the so I would say different types of superheroes that you have today, where they're a little bit good, a little bit bad.
They're the anti-hero. But the first
Exactly, the
anti-hero I fell in
super
love with was Storm Shadow from G.I. Joe.
right, but
And
exactly, but the with the
notice I didn't get that from the
heroes.
Bible. I got it from a
Right.
comic book,
What I'm saying, yeah,
basically.
exactly. But that's what I'm saying. But that's the idea, was that these are the people we're supposed to look up to. We're
Yeah.
looking up to the ones that, I mean, dude, Batman, just kill the Joker. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's thinking that, like, just kill him, just get rid of him, get rid of the Penguin. But we're not gonna do that, because now you
Fuck
are
up his ethos.
becoming,
Yeah.
you're embodying the evil that we don't want. So that was it for
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
It was like, that's the thing, is that they need someone, just like Adam is saying, they need someone to tell them what is the difference between good and evil, and then continue to reinforce that over and over and over again through every story, through every villain, because every villain in our personal lives, they don't look the same, right? I'm sure each of us has a Joker, each of us has a Penguin, each of us has a,
Mhm.
right, and you can just kind of fill in the blank. So how do you deal with that new villain? And I think that's, to me, that's what this gives you. And back to what Adam said, now you have an entire community of people just learning these stories and potentially leaning in to the understanding of good and evil, and having a community around the storytelling, maybe the morals and the values, and then of course the artwork as well that goes with it. So
True.
that's kind of how I see that comic sense, and what people are learning and really deriving from the comic world.
That's amazing. I mean,
It's
I love that because I also saw
yeah.
like hero or superheroes kind of as replacements for religion, where because America kind of pushed religion aside a bit, right? In lieu of other things, capitalism or
I was just gonna
heroes.
say that. Yes.
Right, right. And we
Yeah.
search for saviors in some way, and that's where it steps in. And thankfully, yeah, thankfully, some of the older heroes like Superman and Batman are really good humans, right? They're good people, so that's cool.
Yep. And
Yeah,
Batman
well,
himself is a father-son story in a lot of ways too. Just the
Yeah,
backstory of Batman and why Bruce
true.
Wayne became Batman. And I think the
hmm
way those two ideas, Nick, connect is that in some cases, I think a breakdown in that that family construct, the thing that Darren, the protagonist of Selling Superman, was dealing with, along with his little brother, that
Mhm.
leads you to comics. And then once you're
Right.
there, that becomes religion because you learn good and evil. To to your point. Now, in some
hmm
cases, it's perfectly fine, and dad is introducing son to comics, right? But I for the comic people I know that are like really deep into it, they don't have great relationships with their father.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
So I just start and when I saw the documentary kind of jumped out at me, but it doesn't make it true. That's just my personal experience,
Your
which is
experience, right?
yeah, it's not it doesn't mean that it's a global thing. It's just it's an interesting thing that jumped out to me and I think it's something that one of the characters in the documentary actually said. And I think it
Wow.
was the Josh, the one that has the kidney dialysis
Yeah,
and
Josh the hatchback
he might have mentioned that.
hatchback kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean, he's a real sympathetic character because, he's in it for the love. Him and his dad, do it together. It's
Yep.
really what Darren probably would have wanted. Darren loves the underdog. When he met Josh, he really, just in his life, Darren loves to help the underdog because Darren's really smart, really well built. He's kind of superhero like,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
he loves,
he looks like Superman. Yeah.
I know. But he just, and his brother has special needs, so he kind of grew up helping, right? I think it's part of his
Yeah.
persona is he likes to help the underdog. That's something to me that's I can clearly see with Darren. He likes to help people. He might have his own issues and things he's going through, but it doesn't stop him from helping people on the way, even if he's going through tough times.
Yeah, it's funny that he has built himself up. I mean, physically, to
Physically.
be that helper.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I did see, and I saw that, and I don't know if it was an intentional or unintentional, but I saw that sort of this dichotomy that was in there where he has this insecurity that's built up, this weakness, but on the exterior, he's a big, strong guy, and he looks like he could be a superhero from one of these comic books. He reminded me of Bruce Willis in Unbreakable.
And I was gonna, uh, in making the doc, you have to leave a lot of stuff out, right? And I really was gonna kind of touch on, or even put it more in the forefront that Darren, is well built and works out and all that. But in the end, I felt I didn't have to. Like you can see and you can make up your own mind as to, oh wow, that he's kind of built like a superhero. I wonder if it's because he loves Superman, his dad loves Superman, maybe more than the kids, and so you try to become that thing that your father loved, or
Uh,
possibly too, it's like this perfectionism that we do, hit on the nose that he talks about, um, leads itself into the body also, where you're really trying to make the body perfect and look beautiful, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? It takes quite discipline, but if along the way you're telling yourself you're not good enough to get there, that can be a bit harmful. That's how I see it. It's like we got to treat ourselves
Okay.
nice along the way.
Yeah, 100%. And you've done a lot of documentaries, and we have to ask you a question as a documentarian without giving any spoilers for the people who will go purchase this, watch it, enjoy it, etc. There's a moment in episode 3 where you have to confess that you did something to Darren. You confess this in what looks to be a warehouse, and it looks like anything could happen as you're making this confession. And I just wonder, do you think Darren would have just walked away from the documentary if you guys weren't friends in high school? And then the second part of the question is, as a documentarian, how do you feel about that incident changing the organic volition and direction of the documentary? Did that break a
These
principle for you?
these are great questions. Great questions. Um, so yeah, first of all, I don't think there would have been a documentary at all if Darren didn't know me and we weren't friends. I don't think he would have done it. Um, I'm quite sure of that. And then, because he knew he could trust me, he also knew I made empowering films and wasn't just going to make a salacious, reality TV show that was just preying upon him like Tiger King kind of stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And as it
Mhm.
was, I pushed pretty far and probably a lot deeper into the internal that he might have wanted to. Right? He likes the comics and the business side, and I like the internal, and that's my prerogative as a filmmaker. Now, on when you know, made that mistake with the Superman one, right? When we can talk about it. I mean, I don't know if it's a anyway. There's a big thing
Spoiler.
that
The
happened.
spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler
There
alert.
you
The
go. There's
crew
a
does
thing that
something.
happens.
The thing that happened with the Superman one, the crew,
Yeah.
and yeah, if at that moment he didn't know me, for sure it would have ended because it almost ended at that moment anyway. And it almost
Oh
the
wow.
film almost ended two or three other times. That's how we begin the series, is him wanting to end the documentary when there's a lot of press coming out about him, and he makes a sale, and he's just feeling, really kind of like, why am I putting myself out there? Uh, so
Hmm.
so for sure, if we weren't friends, yeah, it would have been it. And then as a filmmaker, I I'm not worried about the fourth wall. Like, I'm no matter what we're impacting, we try not to in many senses. But I've been
Right.
in a lot of documentaries where the crew is part of an adventure. We're in the Himalayas on motorcycles, or we're in Kazakhstan in a nuclear test site. Like, we're in it. And I like integrating us as filmmakers into the storyline, And so I didn't plan on integrating us that much, right, into the
Interesting.
storyline. Like, you know,
Not that way, you know what I
not
mean?
that way, because
Yeah.
some of the crew and everyone were just sick to their stomach, physically because of that. Myself, I was just like, well, this is crazy, but I just have to tell him because he wasn't there. Darren wasn't there when it happened, so I had to kind of build up the strength to, as soon as he walks in, I got to tell this guy, and that's that. No messing about. And he never even looked at the book after that. He just left, to his credit. But um, so I don't mind. I don't mind that at all. I think it makes it more interesting. I think it's more honest because we are there. And in episode one, it's
Mm.
just me alone with mom, Darren, and his brother in the house. And I'm like, you're hearing me ask questions. I'm there. I'm
Mhm.
prompting it all. And that doesn't happen like that unless I'm there. It's not like you just sit and observe and they're going to talk to each other. That doesn't happen.
Right.
So to me, it's more honest to recognize that you are there, and can make for more interesting conversation. That's why I say early on, like, I'm not a comic book guy, and that way I'm coming at it from an angle of, how did it get this way? Why do we value these things so much? Is there a mental health issue with collecting? Is part of it a sickness, as Chris Vogler says, but he says it's a sickness that has a great potential for healing. And I love that. He's like, it's mental health. It's a mental sickness, but it has potential for healing. And that's why it's so beautiful, because you can see kind of the hole that you might have
Right.
had in your childhood or with your father and heal it. And I think that's really cool to, like, recognize a shadow and also recognize the potential of the shadow and not beat around the bush. And that only happens if, you know, honestly, the filmmaker is approaching it a certain way. Like, why would I go interview Chris Vogler? Well, because I want him to talk about some things like this, so we're there. That's what I
Yeah.
say. We're there, and you can't avoid that. And so I'm not like a
Yeah.
reporter in a war just trying to observe things.
Before
Yeah,
you
well,
ask your
remember, man,
question,
I was
oh,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
this,
Yeah.
Chris. This is something just small, but you can never recognize a shadow without realizing the light,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? The shadow does not exist without it.
Right.
So
good
that's very
point.
cool that you found that in your story as well.
And I just want to contextualize this for people who are listening and watching. The reason this is a big deal is because what happens in the story happens to something that is valued at $3 million. And outside of that, there's an enormous emotional value, let's say priceless emotional value attached to this thing that happens. And so I don't want to give anything away for those who are going to go watch it, but it really is a major plot point and turn in the story of the documentary. So
Yeah, and
yes.
back to what
Yeah,
you
go
mentioned
ahead, Nick.
earlier, Chris, this idea of affecting the story. And that's actually something that was really interesting to me, is just that idea of the documentarian. I think that we often think about the documentarian as the guy who's watching the penguins from afar, right?
Right.
You don't mess with the penguins and you don't save the penguin from the sea lion. It's like, this
Yeah.
is not that type of documentary. And there's so many. I mean, my Octopus Teacher is such a great documentary.
Yeah.
And the person who's making the documentary is influencing the outcome. They are part of that outcome. So sometimes we have this sense that you should be external to it. But I think what's really cool, and something that I just learned about you, is that you have to be in it. And the reason you have to be in it is because, as a documentarian, there are certain things that you want to extract from the story, right?
Yeah.
It's not,
Mhm.
you're not a comic book guy. This isn't a film about comic books. That might be the through line that goes through it. That's the drama, but
Right.
you're trying to find the humanity
Yeah.
in that drama. And
Always.
it cannot be drawn out without you injecting yourself in the story and asking the questions that you're asking and making people actually open up where before they might not have. So I think that's a really cool thing about documentaries, and then the way that you approach your documentaries specifically.
Yeah. Well said.
Are
Absolutely.
there any docs before we get into Sam's audience polls? Are there any docs that you've seen this year? We're approaching award season. Outside of your own doc, excluding Selling Superman, what is the best documentary you have seen this year? In 2024, I should say.
Gosh, have I? This might be a hard question because I don't know if I've. Sometimes, it's It's like if you play soccer all day, you don't want to go watch soccer. So
I
I
was
tend
just
to
gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to escape with, like, murders in the building, like a funny comedy
Yeah,
with
sure.
Martin Short. Uh, but I watched the Boris Becker one, but I don't know if that was this year. I watched the Menendez
Love
one, but it
Boris
wasn't a
Becker.
documentary. Yeah, Boris Becker one's
Yeah.
cool. So what else?
Did you see the
I'll
Beckham one?
I didn't see the Beckham. See, again, because I watch a lot of soccer, so I was like, I've had enough.
See, nah, dude. So I'm a soccer guy too, just so you know.
Yeah,
Like, what's out of camera right now are my
yeah.
copas, right? They're like right there. I got to keep
Nice,
them next to me
nice,
at all
nice.
times. But the Beckham one is cool, man. You'd enjoy it.
All right, I'll check it out. But even like you were talking about documentaries, the next one we're making is called Aaron's Law, and I'm not directing. I brought in an amazing female to direct it, but she has experience with it revolves around sexual abuse of children and trying to stop that and a law
Yeah.
to help stop it. She's had experience, right? And she will probably end up speaking to that and making the film because she has experience and knowing what to ask people and making people comfortable. So we're part of it. We're definitely part of it. And you got to choose the right person to tell the story in a right way. That's what I think.
Yeah, we had a
Gotcha.
filmmaker that we're cool with named Drew Maynard, and he did a Mistakes in the Making, which is a series we have on this podcast. And he talked about that in his Mistake in the Making, just being the wrong person to tell the story about
Yeah,
this 85-year-old black man in Nashville that basically was a steward of his community and was polishing shoes and had run his own business for a long time. But he was the voice of it as a 30 something white guy. And while I get I would say, me and Nick don't totally agree with that, but I get where he's coming from, and I get where in his mind he's like, this story could have been told better from a different voice. That's the
yeah,
part
Yeah,
Morgan
well,
I
had he
Freeman.
agree
had
more.
right,
Yeah,
had he had different
like a
partners,
Twinkie,
right, in
like
the
a Twinkie.
process to ensure
yeah.
that the other person, the person that he was doing the documentary on, felt
Mhm.
comfortable in opening up. And I
That's
think
it.
that sometimes shared experience is
Yeah,
the thing that
Yes.
allows you to open up. And I was going to say, regarding Aaron's Law and the documentary you're working on, I would highly recommend watching the short animated film called The Pachyderm.
Mm.
okay.
And I'm only recommending it to you because of the content of the story that you're going to tell.
Yeah,
It is something that it's a very high quality film. It is
okay.
amazing,
I can do it.
but the content of that story is difficult to recommend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I can't recommend it to people who I know would be
Yeah,
affected, negatively by that. But it's an amazing short film, and I would recommend that you watch it. It's an animated film out
What's the
of
name
all
of it
right.
again?
France, The Pachyderm.
The Pachyderm. Got it. I'm going to write
Yep.
that down. You guys heard it here. My recommendation is The Mountain Queen. And this
Ooh,
is about a woman who has the world record for summiting Everest, I
ooh,
believe,
nice.
the most times. And no one knows her name. She lives basically a nameless, faceless life in Connecticut.
Wow.
And for a long time, she lived with a husband who wanted to keep it that way. And that guy was also a great climber and had done a lot of summits, but was highly jealous of her, and was also terribly abusive, and may have had some addiction issues as well. But this story sort of chronicles her life and her ability to just remain positive throughout all this stuff that's going on, and
That's it.
continue to summit this mountain over and over and over again as she gets older and older and older.
Talk
And
about an escape.
this is a mountain that 20-year-olds die on trying to summit it. So
Yeah,
it's a Netflix doc, but it really is quite inspiring. There's a few docs I've seen this year. I don't know if Mountain Queen's the best doc I saw this year, but it's the one that's the most palatable. Anyone watching that doc will leave inspired and
love it.
educated and entertained. So
Oh, you mean like the people who watch the Make It podcast? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Got
that's
it.
right.
Just making
Yeah,
sure we're on the
boom,
same
you nailed
page.
it.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Make
I'll,
It podcast,
I'll just
intern
I'll
Sam.
throw in there. I'll throw in there
Oh,
Tsunami. I
okay,
watched. It's a 4 or 5 part series, Nat Geo Tsunami.
okay.
It talks. I think it's from 20 years ago, the tsunami that hit, and it uses footage from everybody in the different countries to tell this story of what really happened that day. And Again,
Ooh,
I love
Okay.
stuff like that where we're showing like the heroes, but also the reality of kind of what the fires are going on right now, and it just gives you
Yeah, man.
also things that like bring me to gratitude. Something that inspires you or something that reminds you like, hey, this is precious, and you learn, right? So this is helpful when
mhm.
you. It's also why I watch westerns because like God, life was pretty damn tough back then. Like in the
Oh yeah, man.
1800s, you're like, this is some
Yeah,
tough stuff, and then you're like, okay, it's not so bad. We're doing all right.
Right. I like
I'm
that.
trying to
I like
catch up
that.
with Landman,
Landman,
and
that's a crazy show.
Taylor Sheridan's on a rip right now with all of his shows, 1883, and it's just
Yeah, great show.
every one of them is incredible. So
Yeah,
he
1888, great.
owns the zeitgeist right now. Yeah, uh, Sam, why don't you drop some audience polls on us, my friend?
It's time. Yeah, I'm ready.
It is time.
Yeah. Okay, so for the first poll today, keeping with the comic book theme, it's pretty simple, but which superhero is the best? Okay.
Just period. Just the
Period.
best.
Just period. What's
Well,
the
Okay.
best
question
superhero?
mark, but
Right.
Yeah, not period. Period.
You're
Question
right.
mark. Comma.
yeah.
Exclamation mark. You gotta add another one. Make it in
Hyperbang.
all caps, bro.
Actually, it is. It's hyperbang. Yeah, it should be a hyperbang, right?
All right,
Question
yes,
mark!
go for
Exclamation
it.
point. Yeah,
That's a hyperbang.
Is that what it's called? I've never
that's
I've
what a
never heard of
hyperbang
that.
is.
So, yeah,
A
it's a
hyperbang
hyperbang.
is a question mark and an exclamation point back
Because
to
an
back.
exclamation mark is a bang, if y'all didn't know.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I didn't know
Okay.
that.
It's
Learning,
good
we're
to know.
learning here.
It's a fun
Yeah.
fact.
And
Yeah.
a
We're
bomb is a
learning.
boom.
Bing bang
Yeah,
boom.
man.
Okay.
All right. Coming in
Go.
at number 1, somewhat surprisingly, I'll be honest here, Superman with 45%. So
Surprising.
Okay.
I don't know if there's some
Yeah.
anticipation there. He's a hot topic.
Nah,
but
bro. But go ahead. Go say the other three.
Yeah. What are
Well,
the options? What are the options?
Yeah.
here?
The next one is Spider-Man. So number 2 is Spider-Man, 27%. Then
Okay.
closely behind, Batman with 22%.
Yeah.
And then in dead last, Wolverine with 5%.
I thought
Because-
Wolverine was a tough
but
ad.
wait. Well, what was the
Really?
question? But what was the question?
What was the
Wh-
best superhero?
Which superhero is the best?
Because Wolverine's not a superhero. He's
Yeah,
a
he
mutant.
is. Well, no.
No,
I mean,
He's a
you got to think
mutant.
about it in
He's
the
a mutant.
zeitgeist. Got to think about it in the zeitgeist of comics, right? And I'm saying that that's why he got
Yeah.
the lowest, because people think of him as a mutant and they think about Superman as a superhero. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's not a superhero. I think he is a superhero. He got
You did
superpowers,
just
bro.
say he's not a
But
superhero.
I think that no, what I'm saying is that in the community, that's the difference. That's the idea.
Yes, the
Is
community.
that there's a difference. So, but
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
point.
not surprised, because think about it. I just think about it from a power standpoint, because when you're a kid, you used to do that. Which superhero you want to be, and you go back and forth, and you always end up with Superman because he's got every power.
Yeah, that was
Like-
what I don't like about Superman. Actually, is that he can do too much stuff.
No, he can do everything, bro. It's great. It's
Yeah.
great. It's like, okay, who can win in a race? Superman or Flash?
It's a good question.
And I think it's always Superman. It's like
Yeah.
he's gonna win it.
That was
So-
why I didn't like Superman versus Batman the movie. Well, one amongst many reasons is
There's-
that they were trying to make it
372
seem
reasons
they were trying to
not
make it
enjoy
seem
that
like it was
movie.
like a fair fight. It is in no way a fair fight between Superman and Batman. Batman
No.
would get in real life would have no chance. What trickery can you do with the bombs and the hooks on to Superman, who can fly and see through walls, like
the bombs and the hooks.
and the hooks and the trickery and the car. Like I do wonder how the poll would have changed, Sam, if we would have included Iron Man in place of Wolverine.
The thing with
He's
Iron
not
Man.
a superhero, is he?
No, yes, he is. He definitely
Because
is.
he got
He's
super genius.
definitely a
Because he's a
superhero.
super genius. Is that why?
Well, it's
Well,
Batman.
the
Same
suit
thing as
makes him a
Batman.
superhero. Yeah,
Same thing as
I know,
Batman.
but
just got a suit.
Exactly. So I'm
Iron Man and Batman basically both have money, and they use that to their advantage
Oh,
to
so,
save
yeah,
people.
best
Yeah.
superpower.
Yeah. That's I like that.
But does
superpower.
this
I like
make
having it.
does this make Wolverine? So, for Nick, does this make Wolverine a super mutant? Is that what he is?
No, he's a hero. He saves the day. He's a superhero.
Oh.
And the thing is that he also, And here's a
I'm
good
proud of you,
poll,
Nick.
or more of a
It's quite a
quiz.
journey.
Who's the oldest one? And it's Wolverine. People don't know that,
Yeah,
but
Mm.
like
yeah.
he's the oldest. He's been doing it longer than any of these superheroes. So like, if you really want to put it down and be like, who's the best superhero? Nobody's been doing it longer than Wolverine. So I
Wait,
mean,
what do you mean by
But
long? Like
people disagree.
he showed up in? You
because
mean they
this
wrote him
dude,
in
remember,
earlier, or
you can't kill this dude. You try to kill him, he wakes up, and next thing you know, it's 100 years later. This dude's been doing Wolverine stuff for centuries. Whereas
He means in story, Adam.
exactly,
In
I think
story,
Kal-El
okay.
he ages normally, I guess. Hey, look, comic book people, don't come after me. I'm not deep, right? So I'm not trying to hear a bunch of hate speech. Nick doesn't know what he's talking about. Kal-El was 37 times around the sun, and I like don't.
No, they are going to come for
for
you.
sure.
I
for
know,
sure.
don't. I'm just asking. I'm
Did you
begging,
see-
bro. I'm like, just don't do
There
that.
was a guy on TikTok the other day that was like, "How could Sam not mention Avatar: Way of the Water? It's actually
I saw that.
hilarious.
I saw
It's actually
that.
hilarious that he would leave that out." I'm like,
I'm
"Come
saying-
on, he's
I don't
talking.
know enough.
We don't
Yeah.
script this. This is not a scripted show." He left
Exactly.
one big movie out. By the way,
Right.
it came out in December at the end of COVID. I think
Yeah.
Mavericks got to get the credit for that. Anyway, Sam, what's your second
anyway.
poll?
The second poll. So, Adam, we know you're a big advocate for meditating. So, naturally,
Mindfulness.
to blend the two, which superhero meditates? Number one, kind of unsurprising when you think about it, Professor X with 63%.
Ooh.
Then I thought this was interesting. Hulk/Bruce Banner at
Yep.
19%.
I believe it.
Because he can't get angry. I didn't understand until just now.
Exactly. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to
The
get
audience
angry.
used their
That's the
brains.
idea.
This was a good poll on this
That's
one.
why I started
Yeah.
meditating. I was a nightmare, Nick, on the soccer field. I was getting red cards, so I started meditating.
Oh, see, I could have helped you with that, bro. Like, that's awesome.
So then number 3, Doctor Strange with 11%.
Doctor
Totally.
Strange.
And then
I mean, I can see that. I see why.
in dead last, completely
Dead
180
last.
opposite of the other poll, Superman 6%.
Wow.
Yeah, I've never seen.
I don't know.
Nah.
Fortress of
yeah,
Solitude. That's
No, he doesn't
Fortress of
meditate.
Solitude is
he
the
goes
perfect
there-
place to meditate.
I-
You're
it
right.
that's what I'm saying.
It would be, but he goes there to connect with his people. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like reconnect with the past and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I see that. I see that. But that makes sense to me. You know, you got
Mhm.
Professor X is all about the
That's
mind,
his whole
and he's the
thing.
most.
What does that
calming
say about
person.
meditation, though, Nick? Like, and Adam, like, what does it say about meditation that generally people believe that if you're into that, then you must be a doctor or a professor or a heady person? And when really meditation's for everybody. Like, you go to India, it's like the first one I got introduced to is a app called Sattva, I think is how you pronounce it, and it was great, and it's for everybody.
I would say this. I would say I think it's strange that more superheroes don't meditate. It's almost like we think, oh, they have powers, they don't have any problems. And like, oh, I have all this outer
Mm.
power, maybe, and there's not enough focus in our society on let's make somebody's inner power like the Zen warrior. Whereas, maybe in the Far East, a lot of the kung fu masters and superheroes there do have that element to it, but for some reason we don't as much. Doctor Strange, for sure, that's the first guy that jumped to my mind because I think he's doing that a lot when he's like traveling through time and all this kind of.
It's like
That's
a
all I
default
got.
pose a little bit.
Well, exactly. Well, I was, you should have included. This is funny because you said that. I know he's not a superhero, but I thought about Dalsim.
Oh, from Street Fighter.
Street Fighter. Because he got powers. That's why I thought. Just like, no, he's not a superhero. I'm just, again, don't come after me. It's just one of the things I thought about.
Well, his meditation is what allows his limbs to extend.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's the pose that he's
I don't
in,
know if anybody,
right?
for this is for all those people
But
who
here's
played Street Fighter, Street Fighter 2 out there.
But here's a person that I think. So if you had just asked me which superhero I thought, and I did switch my brain into the whole X-Men world, 100% I would have said Beast.
Oh wow, okay.
That's a good shout. I agree with that one. There was one I couldn't include because I just did a little research to see if any superheroes actually do meditate, and Daredevil was like number one. Apparently, he's like depicted frequently meditating. So I was not able to include Daredevil.
Wow.
I just thought that was interesting.
Okay, so we might rerun the poll with different language, Sam, and then figure out like if we get some different results, because maybe we just sometimes the weakness of the poll, and it doesn't happen to us a lot, so that's all good. But sometimes the weakness of the poll is that it forces us to put answers in there, or that's like the most reliable way to get responses versus saying, "Hey, comment below," and we might not get the multiple choice right. Or we might get 3 of the 4 spot on. So yeah, we might need to rerun that with Daredevil and see what happens for Sam.
For sure.
Those were 2 excellent polls. I appreciate you,
of course,
swinging your polls around on us like that. That was great.
Happy to.
Thank you. Thank you very much. and with that, totally accident. And with that, we should pay some bills, shouldn't we, Nick?
That we should, my friend.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go.
Bing bang boom.
Let's
Bing bang boom.
I
don't know.
My ear. It's like it's in my ear. Like,
okay.
Why? It's pain.
Oh, it's just so loud.
Yeah.
All right.
So loud.
All right. Let's go pay these bills. Hey everybody, Chris here, and this episode is brought to you by the feature film Midas Man. What is Midas Man? Midas Man is the first, final, and most respectful cinematic portrait of Brian Epstein. Based on an original story, Midas Man explores the life of a man who struggles to find his place in the world. Brian Epstein is celebrated today as the visionary who signed the Beatles and creating the blueprint for modern artist management. Throughout the film, Midas Man traces Brian's life from his formative years to his meteoric success and the ensuing chaos as he managed some of the biggest acts in the world. The film delves into his close relationships with family and friends and his lifelong search for love, set against an extraordinary period of cultural change. It reveals the untold story of one of history's most remarkable outsiders. Though managing the Beatles was perhaps his most viable role, it was only a part of the 1,000 lives Brian Epstein lived in just a few short years. And without further ado, I'd like to show you guys a trailer of Midas Man, which you can watch on the Olyn Network. That's OLYN. So you get there, OLYN.com. You can also find it some other places as well. But be sure to support Midas Man, support indie filmmaking, support filmmaking in general. Promise you won't be let down by it. So enjoy this trailer.
The Cavern Club, Liverpool. The moment my life changes forever and everything suddenly becomes so clear.
May I come in?
Oh, if you do, one of us allowed to come out.
Time to shine. Those boys will be bigger than Elvis.
How was that, Mr. Martin?
I think there's some promise.
Some promise.
And we're back to the show, and this is a perfect time to hop into some things we should know. Papa Bear, can you drop it on us? What's this episode's things we should know?
And the way you said it, I was like, he's like, drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
Yep.
Well, sure. Let's have some things we should know.
Let's go.
Well, we all know that comic strips.
Shout out to Snoop Dogg.
Comic strips led to the comic books. But my question for you is, what was the first known comic book printed in America, and in what year was it printed? And for Chris and Nick, a hint.
Oh God!
It was not 1914.
Right.
Okay. That's an inside joke, Adam. We always guess 1914 or 1918, but he did not say the answer was not 1918, which means it probably is 1918. Okay. So first, say the question again.
So let's
PB.
say it again. Yeah. What was the first known comic book printed in America, and in what year was it printed?
First known comic book printed. You got anything, Adam?
So unfair.
What are you thinking here?
You asked the non-comic book guy.
Correct. I mean,
comic book
because
question.
I would be like in the 19. It would be Action Comics 1 in 1938, 9, right there. But that's all. That's to me the first
1938,
superhero comic book, but not comic book. So before that, it was more
Yeah,
like
it's careful wording there.
yeah.
Exactly.
that was
Is
the
it?
first-
It's a comic book though, not a strip.
Yeah. It's a
Correct.
comic book
Okay.
printed.
Okay.
Correct.
That was more like a.
You got something, Sam?
It's got to be early. Like I would
Hey,
think
PB,
surprisingly
when was
early.
World War II?
42, 1942. But World
I
War
thought it
One, just
ended in-
after World
didn't-
War
didn't-
One, I think ended in 19. Is that right?
Yeah, World War I ended in 1919. World War II ended in 1945.
45. Okay, so World War Two maybe started in 42.
Okay.
PB, you were in World War One and Two. Tell us the dates. Tell us the dates of these things, so we don't have to guess so much.
Oh,
let's
the
see
dates
here.
of the wars: 1918 for World War One, and 1941 for World War II.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
I'm going to say 1942.
Okay, Nick, I'm writing these down. Nick, you have 1942. Sam, you've got what?
I'm gonna go early. I'm gonna go 1925. So 100 years.
1925. Shout out to Warren G. Harding. And the okay,
A regulator.
Yeah, Warren G. Harding.
Warren G.
okay, and
We're looking for the year or the name of the book. Which one do we want here?
well,
We looked at both, right?
it'd be nice to have both. If you get either, if you get either one, we'll take it. But
I'll
what?
give it a year.
Yeah,
that's
what
it.
character
Okay,
is
I
this
Popeye.
book about?
Popeye.
Ooh,
Okay, Nick's
I
got
like that.
Popeye.
I'm
Okay,
gonna
Nick's got
go with
Popeye.
it's some like Doolittle character, something like that. It's like
See, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
Okay,
like that.
Adam's got Doolittle.
Doolittle,
Okay.
husband, wife, probably in the late 20s, 1929. I'm gonna go. There we go.
Oh, so Adam's changing. He's going to 29 instead of 39. Okay, 1929. Sam, you got a character?
he's a.
I'm gonna go with the Smurfs.
The Smurfs. That's immediately wrong.
In 1925.
That's what we're going with. I'm standing with it.
He's-
That's immediately incorrect.
that
Okay,
sounds like
okay.
Sam is
I got that one over here.
Sam is throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not on the year, but who knows?
I'm gonna go 1939, and I'm going to go with the what's wrong, PB? What?
No, I was going to say that's when Superman was
Yeah, it's super.
first printed.
What the hell are you doing, Nick? Oh, he's got a Smurf. He's got a Smurf Lego creation here. That's amazing. And it's and for those listening,
What
It's
Smurf
it's a
character is that?
Smurfette.
Smurfette.
It's Smurfette.
Smurf.
That's right.
Now she
Okay.
slept with
That's
all of them.
Right from 1925.
There was only one girl in all of Smurftown, I think.
That's right.
Oh.
Well, no, until they had the little Smurfs, and
Yeah.
there was a girl in that little group of little Smurfs. I know there was a
yeah.
name for the little Smurfs. I can't remember what the name
The
was.
Smurf
Were they
Lady?
born in
With the little
Sweden?
Smurf.
Wasn't it?
All right.
Okay. My guess is Mutual of Nebraska's,
Mutual of Omaha.
because everything was
Omaha.
Mutual of Omaha's Superman, because everything back then had to be funded by an insurance company.
Mm.
Okay.
All right.
And what year was that again?
39.
39. So we got 25, 29, 39.
We got
and
29, 40, 25, 42,
42.
and 39. Okay, PB,
All right.
lay it on us.
Come on, PB.
Well, let's get this torment over with.
Yeah, spread it like potted meat. Let's
And-
go.
In one way, 42 is close, but it's 100 years off.
Oh shit.
The book is The Adventures of Mr. Obadiah Oldbuck, written. You want? Yeah, the Adventures of
Okay.
Mr. Obadiah Oldbuck.
Is that like John
Written,
back then?
yeah,
Obadiah.
written and illustrated by Swiss caricaturist Rodolfo Topfer in 1837 and later translated and published in 1842 as a bound supplement to the New York published magazine Brother Jonathan.
Good Lord, man.
Holy moly.
We were
What in
so
the
close.
1842? Like, no.
1837, really, Nick?
No, 42 is when it was published,
Well,
right? I mean,
but it's
like,
37.
it came
it
out
got
in
republished in
37.
yep.
Yeah,
Wow.
in
And it was republished
Switzerland,
in Brother
Switzerland,
John's magazine in 42.
and it was
That's
later
crazy.
published in London, but it didn't come to the United States until 1842. So
Yeah.
we aim to
So,
educate.
Chris, no, I was right the first time. 1842. It didn't exist. Because if it didn't come,
If it wasn't in the United States, it isn't real, damn it.
But
right.
I will tell you that this is an issue that's been controversial in the comic book world because they're fighting over it. And
Okay.
a lot of comic historians are pushing that the first was a comic called The Yellow Kid. You ever heard of that?
Jaundice?
You mean right here?
Pretty
Right
close.
here? You see him?
Yeah.
Yep.
But The Yellow
Nick is
Kid
pointing at Marge
started
Simpson.
in
I mean,
the
Maggie
late
Simpson.
The Simpsons.
the late 1800s, and eventually got into political issues. And that Yellow Kid comic later led to the coining the phrase yellow journalism.
Oh, no way. Look at that, Chris.
Wow.
PB is dropping knowledge.
I almost went
Yeah.
with the Yellow
He
Kid
has
as the
educated
first,
us, Adam.
but then further research found Old Man Obadiah, Oldbuck, and
Oh, fuck.
and some.
Is Obadiah black? Just be real with just to level with me, Nick. Is Obadiah black?
No, he is
Well,
not.
He's not.
But
He's
he-
Okay.
from
With a,
the
Sweden.
with a nickname like O Buck, I
There
just
was
had to
no
know.
black people in Sweden.
Well,
I just
in
had to know with a name like
1837.
Old Buck.
I know, right?
But the
just had to know.
storyline of Obadiah is pretty weird. He's
Okay.
found this lady that when he first sees her, he wants her. He wants to marry her, and she shuns him, and he gets depressed about that and tries to kill himself.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah,
Wow, what a
and so he comes back again, and he tries to warm her up to him, and
Pepe Le Pew.
he gets rebuffed.
Exactly.
He gets rebuffed 5 times before she finally accepts him, and they get married.
And that was the basis for Candyman.
Yeah.
5
Obadiah.
times. Obadiah.
Old Man
Obadiah.
Obadiah Oldbuck.
Mm.
There.
Wow.
See,
And I
you
will-
should have known that. That
I
should
know,
have come
as
up in your
a-
research.
I
when
know.
You were looking up Superman.
I feel a little ashamed that I
Salsa Bear,
didn't.
you did it
do more
again.
D&D. Yeah.
Well, this is what he does to people,
right.
Adam. Don't feel any
Yeah,
shame at
man.
all.
Yeah,
and
don't feel shame.
and producer Papa Bear, you've done it again. That is definitely a thing we should know. And we now have the most amazing icebreaker or icebreakers of all time.
Sure.
You just continue to top yourself. Well done.
No,
Well
Chris,
done.
we're all
Mhm.
now going to whatever Comic-Con is in our local area, and we're just gonna sit back and hold on to that little gem.
I'm dressing
as
up as
people are-
Obadiah.
Oh, bro, 100%. Because
I'm
they're not gonna know what
and I'm
he
gonna be-
looks like.
I'm gonna be
And-
pestering ladies the whole time, and they were like, "What's up with
Yeah.
this guy?" I'm like,
That's
I'm in character.
Exactly. And the thing is that they're going to be talking about all these
I get to
characters and
harass
all
you
the things that
5
they
times.
know. And we're going to say, but I bet you don't know what the first comic book was. Boom.
Well, I'll give you a homework
Yes.
assignment. Go look up the Yellow
Okay.
Kid. Also very interesting.
I'm gonna write that down. the
He's
Yellow
a
Kid.
New York City tenement kid, wears a yellow dress, has a completely bald head because back in those days, late 1800s, they shaved kids' heads to get rid of lice. And
Wow.
So,
Yellow Kid was sick.
Well, I'm glad yours grew back.
yeah, I'm glad it did too.
That's amazing. So the yellow kid wore a dress, had a
Mhm.
bald head,
He wore a yellow
and
dress. That's why it was called
yellow
that.
dress, had a bald head to
Mhm.
keep him from having lice.
Mhm.
And do you know his storyline just really quickly before we get into some filmmaker Q&A?
No.
He
Oh,
didn't
no.
We'll look it
do
up.
that. He
No,
skipped the
I
yellow
know it,
kid.
but he was a political
Satirist.
tool. He was a political tool for the cartoonist, and they just put the yellow kid in different circumstances and used him, and that's what led to the yellow journalism, um, because they made fun of things going on in New York City at the time that were political
Well,
outcomes of.
it's the source of The Simpsons. I mean,
Yeah,
100%. All
exactly.
those characters are yellow.
He's an
Come on.
early Simpson.
You did it.
Exactly.
You solved it.
He's an early Simpson, but then I also love the comic, the fact that he was calling out even back then this sort of the temptation journalists have to. What happens is, and just I'm just saying this as a person who's had some experience in journalism, is you get close to your sources and then you don't reveal those sources, and then if those sources end up being sort of bad people, you have to defend those sources, and you don't report on them as hard as you might someone who's not your friend, and so on and so forth. And there's just a lot of different types of yellow journalism, and it's not necessarily direct cowardice. It's actually easy to fall ass backwards into. You just find yourself doing it um, now for survival at some point, and it does need to be called out. And journalism has to get better really fast, or the whole thing's just going to go away. I mean, people just do not respect journalism anymore. When I went to school for it, it was Walter Cronkite, it was Dan Rather, it was war reporters, and now it is, it was Sebastian Younger. Now it's like uh
What can I get you to believe versus
for
what
clicks
is the truth?
It's very clicky now. Yeah, it's very clicky.
Clickbait. Yeah.
So anyway, Nick, drop us some off my soapbox. Drop us some filmmaker Q&A, please.
I will, but before I do that, I
Okay.
have to do two things, right? So one, PB dropped that background that obviously Adam picked up on.
So
and I appreciate that.
So for the
Easter egg.
listening audience,
tell
Papa
the
Bear's
people?
background is the Fortress of Solitude from Superman.
That's right. And Adam was like mad quick about picking up on it, which was awesome.
Absolutely.
And then Adam is now looking at my background, trying to find some Easter eggs. And I may not have one for him on the wall. And Adam, just so you know, that's legit. That's a wall there. That's not a green screen. Okay.
Once you started showing the Smurfette, then the click. That's not a green screen. That's cool.
Exactly. Those are legit Legos. Okay.
Legit
No set
Legos.
here, bro. No set. Okay.
Right.
But I do have a Lego that I made in Legoland, Florida. They have these little Lego pits inside the hotel.
I've been there.
Okay. Yeah. And you can just go in there with the kids and you just make Lego. So one night I was in there and I decided to grab some of the Legos and make something. So I have it. I had my wife bring it to me earlier, and I'm going to show you what I made in the Lego pit with the kids.
Okay, for those listening, Nick is
Legoland.
grabbing something. He's now
There
slowly
it is.
revealing the emblem of Superman, Superman's chest made of
Try and
100%
sell that.
Legos, all in red and
Hey,
yellow. This
is one of a kind. No one has this. There's no set to make this, and this was made out of the Lego bricks at Legoland.
Wow. So
yes, it is the
y'all know.
size of two
Oh.
Nick
created
faces.
it.
If you're just
Wasn't
listening,
some
if you take two of Nick's heads
by
and put them
number.
side by side, that's how wide they are.
Right, exactly. No color by number. It's just basically a pit that they have of a bunch of different color Legos. They have like red, yellow, white, blue, green, and black. And then you just sit in the pit and you grab Legos, and I decided to make this. And there is a slight imperfection on here. I wanted it to be like perfectly even. And I was fighting with this thing. I was so annoyed with myself. I was like, I made this little imperfection. And this little girl came over and looked at it and she said, "That's awesome." And I said, "No, but you see this thing right here? There's this one Lego that's out of place." And she said, "No." Put her hand on my shoulder and said,
Thank God
"You did a
shoulder.
great job."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh." I was like,
That's wonderful.
it's supposed to be in reverse. Like I'm the one, I'm
Yeah.
the adult, right? I'm the one who's supposed to tell the kid they did a great job despite, no, she told me I did a great job. And I said, you know what? Thank you. And I let it go.
That's awesome.
And that little imperfection, I mean, you can't see it. You can't tell.
If we've come
But
full
anyway.
circle where Adam was talking about our propensity to self-hate. Now, I'm not saying you were hating yourself in that moment, Nick, but she reminded you, hey, man, you did a great job. You're in a
Exactly.
bucket
I
of Legos
was
right now.
striving for perfection out of a pit of random Legos.
Right.
I love
Come
it.
on, guys.
Yeah, come on.
Right.
Enjoy
So
yourself. It is that fun.
childlike sense of wonder.
Well done.
Exactly. It corrected me. So anyway,
Well done, son.
all right, man. So I'm going to talk about the Superman stuff. So the first question I have is actually starts out with this. So Selling Superman came out in November, right?
Uh-huh.
That's when you put it out there. Okay. So in December, we got Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Mhm.
July
documentary.
11th, right? The documentary. July
Great doc.
11th, we're going to get the new Superman movie. So,
Yeah.
what has been the impact of releasing a film about Superman so close to when these two films are being released?
Yeah, I don't know, right? Because I can't see all stats and things, and I don't know how it's affecting it either positively or negatively in terms of how many people see it. That Selling Superman, because of that, is the hype more around Superman, so it's better, or is it too much Superman, so they're excited about that, and there's too many Superman things? I tend to think it's on the positive side, where people are more hyped up about Superman. It's in the zeitgeist. We don't know when independent filmmakers or just filmmakers don't know when other people are going to drop certain things, right? So I knew when Christopher Reeve's doc was coming out in the theater, but they had not announced when it would come out streaming. They had not announced when it would come out on video on demand. So, we by no means trying to plan around that, is what I'm trying to say. You do what's right for your
Right.
project, and people really wanted it and they were ready for it. The comic book community's like, gosh, we've been waiting 2.5 years for this. Get this out there. But I'm not in HBO's calendar, and they're not telling you we're going to do this. What I can
Right.
tell you is kind of strange. Strange is not strange, but people. HBO comes out with the Christopher Reeve doc, or they bought it and then released it. HBO Warner. They put it on VOD for $10-$12 or whatever it is, and then they come out on streaming a month later, and the audience gets used to that kind of thing. So I'll tell you, it's a little uphill battle on a filmmaker side to release like we are, where people pay $12 because they just think, oh, isn't next month it going to be on HBO or something? And it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not always like that. We're talking to streamers, but it could be a year from now, could be 8 months from now. You never know. So a lot of people, I think that's more what might maybe works against filmmakers sometimes. It's like, oh, it's just going to be on streaming sometime, so I'm not going to pay for it. And that's
Well, let me jump in on that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really interesting to me. And I think it's specifically terrible for documentaries. And this is why. It gets back to your why when you make films. And I was thinking about this earlier when you mentioned it. I think the price of entertainment that people think about is free.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And I maybe I agree with you. Maybe I agree with the general population that sugar should be free. Right? Get it anytime you want. Right? It's the cheapest thing you can buy. Right? So get your sugar for free. But documentary is not supposed to be sugar. Right? Sugar's bad for you. It's great. It tastes good. It makes you feel good in the moment. But it's not long lasting and it's not good for you. Right? So documentary isn't your sugar, right? It might be from the Mary Poppins side, it's a spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down.
Yeah.
And the medicine that's going down is the education that you're providing via your documentary. And then it's the inspiration that you're providing via your documentary. And my question, if I could actually ask it to the masses, what's that worth to you?
Yeah.
That's why I say pay the $12. To pay the $12 if you think that your mental health or your spiritual health is actually worth something to you. Get that free stuff all you want on Netflix, wherever, but pay your $12 to actually do something good for yourself.
I agree with that. Thanks for saying that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Sometimes you have to pay for better food, right? You can't just you're putting it in your body, you're ingesting it. So And it helps, it might help the networks in the future. The more people do that, recognize, oh, people want healthy food, right? Like they're starting to wake up to in America. Like, hey, we want stuff that's good for us. Also, organic vegetables and things. Same on the media. They might start recognizing, oh, we need stuff that's actually good for us. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for saying that, Nick.
Yeah, no problem, man.
And I just before we go to the next one, though, Nick,
go ahead, Chris.
I wanted to say this one thing, which we have a marketing and branding sort of bent to us, Adam, and we're big proponents of that. We just don't think indie films can be successful without it, and so many indie filmmakers don't even consider it. They have $0 in the budget for it, and we have a pretty strong inclination that they are going to run the Superman trailer for the feature film coming out in the summer during the Super Bowl. And man, if I were you, I'd do some social media buys that same night for selling Superman, and people are going to look at that trailer, see your ad, they're going to click on it, and it's going to equal sales. Go ahead, Nick.
Sweet. Good idea.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, it's a good idea for sure. I mean, again, that's why we're saying it's like, it's all happening around the same time. Yeah. It really should be a boon.
How do you boon it? Yeah, how do you boon on this stuff?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been a time in history when we've had too much Superman. I mean, honestly, like it's just, you know what I'm saying? So bring it on. All right. Yep. So the next thing I've got is this. So one of the things I noticed about the documentary, the Christopher Reeve story, is that in the title, it's super /man.
Yeah.
Right. And I get that might be a take on, it's really Christopher Reeve's story, and he in himself is a Superman, even outside of his role as Superman. But I also think about it from an IP perspective, which is maybe they chose to do super /man so as to not have to deal with the legal side of infringing upon or having to leverage the IP specifically. And I was thinking about this for your documentary. Like, is there anything that you had to do specifically just from a legal standpoint to even call it selling Superman? Is there any, is there a trademark associated with it? I mean, even the colors in the logo, in the title, like, did you have to, what are the legal things that you had to deal with just to leverage that IP as a core part of your story?
Yeah. The first, yeah, and my investors asked the same thing. So the first thing before, I really, set up the LLC and got the investors was I did some of that research, called one of the best fair use firms and said, what can I not shoot because of these kind of things? And what can I call the film? There's no problem using the name. It'd be more if you're using the logo the way it looks, right? And one of our earlier logos for selling Superman was tending toward that, but not, we don't use anything like that in our current poster or in the current title of the film. So the look, the trademark look of it, or the S symbol, that might have been an issue if we were using that. But the title, I think there's another one about education that used it, like Searching for Superman or something like that. You're allowed to, in essence, they don't own the word Superman. They didn't create it.
Okay.
That's the good part. Yeah. That's the good part about it. And, there's things with Comic-Con and all that. I don't know if Comic-Con Comic-Con San Diego tries to claim that they came up with Comic-Con, which they totally did not. And they try to enforce it on other cons. And that's why Comic-Con has a dash in it, San Diego Comic-Con. And I think in the community, I don't know how much people talk about it, but I'm not so in the comic book community. So I'm allowed to say they act like dicks to basically other Comic Cons, and they come after them. They do. Right. It's the inside scoop. Comic-Con San Diego comes after littler cons and makes them change their name. And I think people should call them out for it. And it's really ridiculous because they don't own the word convention or con, and they don't own the word comic. But, that's right. That's the justice side of me. That's the superhero justice side.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that you got to deal with. But that's what I mean. That's why it's important to understand these things, right?
Yeah. So on the legal side, we, early on, sometimes you have to blur things on a name brand on a thing. But because we're all about comics, the lawyers assured me that's what you're talking about. So you have to be able to show those logos and the covers of books because that's the topic. As fair use, you're talking about that so you can show it. And it's also why we were able to show a lot of clips from the Superman movies, because I'm making a commentary on the father son. I'm making a commentary on reality TV shows at one point, right? We make a fake reality show where we fight about Batman and Superman, which, you know, you guys were doing earlier in terms of what superheroes the coolest. That's what happens, right? So we wanted a way to get it in there, but that's why I can show reality shows and like the Fortress of Solitude and some certain scenes from Superman. Like, yeah, you pass it all by these lawyers that have to say, yes, I agree it's fair use, and or I agree it's not. And actually, all the movie clips, that was easy. There was other stuff that was a little harder, but the movie clips, no problem, and the title, no problem at all. And if anything, they do a title search to make sure there's, even if there's another movie with the same title, you're allowed to use the same title. You know, that's fine.
Can you share the name of the company for the audience?
The name of the fair use company?
Yes.
Early on, I called because I'm part of the IDA, the Documentary Association, and they work with Donaldson. Oh, it's 3 names. Donaldson. Oh my gosh.
PB can get it. There we go. We'll get it later.
But then I used a guy in San Diego for all my fair use named Sam. In Better We Trust is the name of his lawyer company, which is kind of a mindful lawyer, LLC. In Better We Trust. But the Donaldson Group, they were really also helpful just beforehand, just for free, taking my questions because they love documentary people, and even afterwards, being me asking them, you know, making sure I could use certain footage from certain cons, you know, and they're like, no, that's public.
That's super cool.
You're allowed. Yeah, it was tough.
That's super cool.
That stuff is kind of tough, but
we've ran into our fair share of lawyers that charge you for any conversation. You know, so I think that's super cool, because there are lawyers that will charge you for a 5-minute coffee or whatever. Like, it's crazy.
Right. No, they were really, really nice. And then Sam, my guy in San Diego, you know, he's always good to the smaller cats, the indie filmmakers. He's awesome.
Perfect. All right, I got another one for you. All right, so this one is more about So this one is more about the nature of this particular film, not some of your other ones. Of course, we're talking all about Selling Superman, but I just want to get general advice from you about documentarians who make films about friends and family. Now, we had some guests on earlier who did a documentary called Boobjan, and it was about their grandfather, right? So that's a very close story. One of our favorite documentaries, Chris, I think is now on Disney Plus. Was it Nine and Waipo?
Nine and Waipo,
right?
And the same guy made the movie Dee Dee this year. Which
so
was one of the best movies of the year.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that was his grandparents, right? His grandmothers on both sides, and it's about his family, and I think it's really cool.
His name is Sean
right?
Wang.
There you go. He's part of it.
Yang.
You're
Which
part
one
of
is
it,
it, Sam?
and this is a friend.
It's Sean Wang.
But this, there you go, Sean Wang. But he's a friend of yours. So I'm just curious, like, do you have any just general advice for if anyone's going to do a documentary that's close to them, friends or family? What advice would you give?
Yeah, 100%. The advice I would give is make sure you know the story you want to tell, meaning what's of interest to you. The message you want to send, what you're interested in knowing about. When it comes to me, I love the idea of value, how we value ourselves, how we value these things so much. That was really what I wanted to dive into, so that you have an angle and you have something you're looking at within someone else's life, because what they might want is very different, and they might want a puffed up version. They might not want to show the shadow, and that's not what people necessarily want to see or should see, the puff piece. So I would say make sure you know what you are interested in exploring. And then the second piece of advice would be make sure you have an agreement with the person that respects them also. That's more the movement now in the documentary world and associations, is to not be exploitive and to give them some power to, like you guys even said to me before we came on, feel free to talk about anything. If we need to cut something later, we'll cut it. And that's how I approach things too, is I'll interview you. I want you to feel free to talk about anything. And afterwards, if something's too sensitive or puts somebody else in a tough position, we can edit later. So you kind of give people, I would say, you give them the power of veto in many ways. They're not the creative force. You're the filmmaker. You get to, have a vision and a way you're telling it, but they're allowed to come in and say, hey, wait a second, like, I think that's actually unfair and you need to give more clarity around this issue. And, with Darren, we talked about, there's a scene in episode 2-3 with the email from his mom. And he was just like, there's more context to that. Like the general audience isn't really going to know what's going on. So we made sure we added more. And I think it actually strengthened and made the movie better in a couple places where he felt, and I agreed with him afterwards and looking at it, it's like, oh, that really helps the movie. So work with the person, but it's your vision, that's the key.
I like it. All right. Well, I've got one last one to kind of wrap this all up. And I'll just say that you've mentioned that documentary filmmaking is a play of faith. Mm-hmm. So how do you manage the play of faith in concert with the expectations of investors, financiers, and distributors? Because they don't want to walk on faith, right? They want to walk on delivery and dollars. So how do you manage those two things together?
Meditation.
Yep. Well said.
Yeah. Lots of meditation. No. Yeah, lots of meditation and experience and trust and see, faith, can't rely on, understanding necessarily beforehand. To have faith, there has to be some risk and some amount of relating to the mystery of it all. So on a very tactical level, you only, you stay in touch with and give people, they don't need to see the whole process, right? Okay, here's episode 1. Oh, cool. Now we're starting to see, but they don't have to see it along the whole 6 months of post leading up to, that first 40 minutes and all the changes and stuff you're battling with. But, if there's a good hook, there's a good hook. And this film, Selling Superman always had a good hook, a Superman at 3.5 and a family trauma around it. Like there's a good hook. And we knew it would be popular. Now the question is, can we deliver it? And I just trusted myself. But and I brought in some good editors, and thankfully it comes together. But yeah, you don't want to keep them too updated, right? Show them little steps of the way. And the other thing I would say, because I could talk about this stuff all day, is in going into it, you tell all investors it's the film world. And it could go big financially, and you never know, it might not. But either way, I'm going to make something meaningful and impactful. This will help people that watch it. I trust myself in that. I make entertaining things that move people. Yes, you better have the money to lose it if need be. So they know going in, it's the film world. And I want to make them money always, and I want to make money too, so we can keep doing the next one. They invest in the Aaron's Law or the next and all that. But they're grown men and women. They understand there's a risk, and I think they all recognize it's a great movie. And sometimes, the networks and the forces that be aren't in our hands. But I do fully think, with this one, a network will come in and make my investors whole, and that'd be good for them because they took a leap of faith with me on this one.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, but you got to be honest, right? Investing in film is risky, so you just got to be honest with people. You can't lie,
Yeah, makes sense.
We would not recommend lying. Having invested in a few films, and there, a lot of times a filmmaker's intent isn't to tell you a lie about what the movie is or is going to be, but when things go sideways, you just don't want to be the last person to know as an investor, especially if you're not an ivory tower investor. If you're a creative investor, someone who is producing or wants to be on the set, you want to be in the conversations as decisions are being made when the filmmaker gets curveballs. I think that's one of the most important things, is because I'll just tell you as an investor in films myself, you're investing in the script and the cast, sure, but it almost is more what you're saying, Adam. Like you're really investing in what we call the founder filmmaker, right? It's the belief you have in the person making the thing that they can execute it at a level of high quality, or you catch them at the ground floor of their career and you can ride up with them as they start to succeed and get better and better and better. So anyway, Adam,
Yeah,
This has
and
been an
and I
absolute
always
blast.
I come in
Oh, go
on
ahead.
budget always. That's another thing. Don't go over, but I always come in on budget, and I have in the
Oh
past.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
So that I make it so I'm not asking for more money. That's number one. Make sure you can do what you can do for that budget. Yeah,
Yeah, come in under budget if you
I
can,
like it.
and then
yeah, that's
Yep,
right.
I
you
like
just
that's
add it
perfect.
to add it to contingency, and you will have a lot of options there in post and as you sell and in the festival run for sure. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
budget in for distribution.
great points.
We budget in for distribution, everything, because you don't want to go looking for that money after, because then people feel they got you by, you know.
Yep.
Yeah,
Never stop
yeah.
asking. Yeah.
You almost have to refund it to not have the loss and
Yeah,
not have it be a total wash, which puts
exactly.
people in a real pickle for sure.
Yeah.
But Adam, can you tell everybody, we've been talking about this documentary now for a little bit. Can you tell the people where they can watch it, where they can learn more about you, all that stuff?
Yeah, if you go to sellingsuperman.com, that'll link out to where you can buy it on Amazon Prime, you can buy it on Apple, and you can buy it on Google Play. For people around the world that aren't, UK, US, Canada, if you go to sellingsuperman.com, we have a special edition there as well. So anyone in the world could get that, and that comes with the bonus features and everything. So no matter where you are, you can buy it through that special edition also, that digital special edition. And then for myself, Eye to Eye Productions, my company. I'm working on my 9th film right now, 9th documentary. And if you go to livingeye2eye.com, the word living, letter I, number 2, letter I, eye to eye, because I want to treat people like I would treat myself, which is hopefully good. And I want, people that work for me to rise up. If an editor wants to become a director, I'm going to help you take that step. So that's where Eye to Eye came from. So livingeye2eye.com has all my films and links out to all that. So I appreciate everyone having a look and maybe checking something out.
All right, you heard it here first. SellingSuperman.com, LivingEyeToEye.com. Go out, support this man. He is doing great work in the documentary space, and we will end on this. Adam, what does it mean for you to make it?
Yeah, how about 2 answers if I can? The first answer.
We
man.
get double time here, Nick.
Well, because the first one I learned quite young. All right, I went to play pro soccer, Nick, and to try out for a team. I went to Ecuador to try out for some teams there. Stayed about 8 months, and came back, played semi-pro in Michigan for the Bucks. Great team. Then I went to Singapore.
Okay, so you were good at soccer.
I was good. I played at Cornell University. I was all Ivy League, there, and we won the Ivy championship. And I'm not a big dude. I'm 5'8", but I'm tenacious, as I was saying before. Anyway, on my way to go to Singapore to try again, my parents were like, "Hey, dude, hey, dude." They didn't say dude, but they're like, "Hey, dude, that degree, that degree ain't gonna sit around for too long. What are you doing here? Just chasing this dream." And I said to them, I go, "Look, do you want your son to be happy? Would that be a success for you? Would that be like you did a good job, you made it, like your son's happy?" And they're like, "Yeah." I go, "Well, trust me, like you did it. Like I already know happiness. I figured this one out early. I started meditating young. I started reading and understanding and making decisions based on that. And I'm like, I'm happy. Like you don't have to worry about me. I already made it, Mom and Dad. Go worry about the other kids." And I think from that moment on they backed off totally. We're like, oh, they felt like a success. They made it. Like their kid was happy. We don't have to worry about him. Because if you're a parent, right, you want your kid to be happy. You don't want them to be depressed or struggle with things. If they're happy, that's a huge win, right? So to me, making it is realizing like that I am happy, that I'm in control out of my happiness. It's not dictated by my success and financial state and all that, because I've been in tough spots, and I just chose to be happy anyway. So actually I'll just stick with one answer. To me, I already made it. When I said that to my parents, I already signaled this is my superpower and don't worry about me. So
that's a tremendous answer, man.
I love it, man.
And
I
Nick,
love
he's
it.
basically saying making it is being happy.
Yeah. That's the question when we ask kids. I think that's when they're really young, right? What does success mean? What do you want to be when you grow up? Happy, right?
Yeah.
Either that or they say Superman
Or fireman.
But-
Yeah.
right.
Policeman.
But besides that, like that's it. You just want to be happy, and that is wonderful. And I think the other part of that I really liked is it's not just happy, but you're in control of your happiness.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
the
the key,
meditation, too.
because
Yeah.
you are not dependent upon someone else to deliver happy to you,
That's right.
right? You are in control of your happiness, and I wish that for everybody.
Same. That's the message of selling Superman. Like the power is within to choose how we see ourselves and the world. We do have that power. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah,
I
here.
love it.
And Adam, I hope you'll visit us again. I hope you'll stay in touch. We'd love to do a round 2 with you. Best of luck on Aaron's Law. This has been a wonderful conversation. And I know all the filmmakers out there are going to love it and find it both educational and entertaining, and hopefully a little inspirational. And like we mentioned before, a little reflection in there as well here at the end. And if you want to learn more about us here at the Make It Podcast, you can do that at themakeitpodcast.com. You can also subscribe, like, follow, review. All that stuff is really important. I know every single podcaster on the freaking planet says it, but they say it for a reason. It's become cliche, but it really does make a difference. So if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and like the video, drop some comments. We reply to all the comments in the community page and beyond. If you're on Apple or Spotify and you're just listening to this thing, I shouldn't say just listening. That's a great thing. If you want to listen to it, awesome. Go to Apple, Spotify, rate us 5 stars if you like what we're doing and you appreciate the work we're doing for independent filmmakers and filmmakers of all kinds and creators of all kinds out there. Please support us on those platforms. We also have, for the winter season, the warmest, softest hoodies and sweaters you can imagine, along with caps, at cottonbureau.com. Again, that's cottonbureau.com. And just search for the Make It Podcast, and our shop will come right up. We have incredible designs there. And Cotton Bureau rejects 90% of all designs. They have ours in the shop. So go there again. Soft, buttery soft hoodies, crew necks, hats,
Buttery, Adam.
long
Buttery.
sleeve tees.
Yeah.
Yeah, go support it. I mean, if you're making it, wear your journey is what we say, Adam. Like if you're in LA, go get one that says LA. If you're in DC, go get one in DC. If you're in Chicago, Sydney, Tokyo, London, you name it, we have shirts for you that represent where you're at and that you're producing where you are, to quote Ryan Hartsock. So there you go. Cottonbureau.com, search for the Make It Podcast. And with that, Nick, can you please leave us with the credo?
Of course. And Adam, thank you again so much. We appreciate you. We definitely appreciate that last statement about your happiness and owning your happiness. We appreciate the fact that this is a kind of a perfect marriage. We have, like Chris says, a lot of times we bat 1,000 on these conversations because we believe that the universe sends us the right people to talk to at the right time. And it has proven itself again in this conversation. You are so well aligned with our credo and the thing that I'm about to state to our audience here. And again, this was a great conversation to kind of cap out our week. So with that, thank you. I'll also add that we're going to drop this motto and more like our core principles on people, which are be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Adam, Nick, talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, man. Adam, we'll have to do it again, brother. This is amazing.
This is fantastic. Love you guys.
Yep.
Awesome.
Sam,
Yeah,
Papa
we
Bear,
appreciate
love you
you,
guys.
dude.
See ya.
Yep.
Peace.
Love you guys.
Awesome.
Take it easy.